Tonight we're going to be talking about creating the cosmic cloud platter, and also spending a little bit of time talking about the Jo Sonja Iridescent Paints and some of the techniques of using them. To give you an idea of what cosmic cloud platter looks like, I have a series of slides here that I'd like to share with you. This particular platter was done by a gentleman by the name of Gary Lowe from the UK, and he was kind of the father of this type of decoration for platters. Quite a number of woodturners have taken up the cosmic cloud platter format after seeing his demonstration online. Just a few others. Now this one, as you notice, is using 3 colors, and the colors are pretty evenly distributed. This particular platter, they used multiple colors, and they used a gold leaf on the rim. This is another one by Gary Lowe, and in this case the acrylic medium, the Jo Sonja Paints, were a little bit thinner so that you see a little bit more looseness in the paint. Again, this is sort of the cloud pattern. Different version of the same thing. This particular platter, they used the iridescent paints, but they used a paintbrush to create the swirls and left the borders natural. Now on this particular platter, the paints were dabbed on were pretty thick, and when the Jo Sonja paint, iridescent paints overlap each other, they tend to not reflect the way the thinner. So what happens is you get a lot of white where they overlap. This is a platter that was done with the Jo Sonja paints, and this is called string pull, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. You don't have to use these paints strictly on platters, although that's what we're going to talk about tonight, but you can also use them on hollow forms. So let's talk about the Jo Sonja paints a little bit, and if you look here, what you'll see is that Jo Sonja makes 6 different colors. They either come in bottles in a liquid form, or as you can see here, they come in tubes, which is more of a paste. When you're using these paints, it's recommended that, particularly if you're going to be using them to create a cosmic cloud look, you need to thin the paints down sufficiently that you can move the paints around and create a very thin layer of paint. So some of the other things that you can use to create the cosmic platters that I mentioned was, of course, brushes. This is a pack that I bought from, I think, from Michael's. It was just a cheap pack of all sizes of brushes, so you know, you can make different designs by using the different brushes, you know, different patterns. The other thing that you can use are sponges. Package I bought here, I think I got from Hobby Lobby. It comes with a series of round sponges that I thought created a very interesting pattern. We'll look at that later. You can also create the cloud pattern that you saw earlier with an airbrush, simply using air as your vehicle to blow the liquid around and create the thin cloud looking scenarios. Of course, if you don't have an airbrush, you can always use a straw. Just takes a little bit of lung power, if you will. So that kind of lays out the materials that you need. Some of the other things that you can use to create patterns with the iridescent paints include some of the things. So some of the string pull patterns that you see came from using various types of string, most of which you can get at the grocery store or the hardware store. In this case, I'm using some yarn that was in the sewing room, and I managed to get a ball of it that wasn't being used. So those are some of the things that you can use to create different patterns. Some other things that are handy to have is a plate to put your paint in. You can lay your strings in them. Some other things that you might want are some mixing cups. I got these from, I believe, from Dollar Tree. You can find them in different stores. Also, some craft wood, popsicle sticks or little craft sticks. Barbecue skewers, anything you can use to mix your paints and the flow medium to get them to the right consistency. One other thing that I ran across that might be something you could use is makeup sponges. They're a little bit denser than the sponge brushes are, and you can use them to apply your color. So the last thing you need are some dark backgrounds. Now you can use any color as a background for these iridescent paints, but I've found that they're most luminescent or iridescent when the background is sufficiently dark. If you use a light background, they will be iridescent, but they're a lot harder to see. The colors are a lot less vibrant. So recommend that you use some sort of a dark background. Now this is black lacquer that obviously you can buy from Lowe's or Home Depot or any of the hardware stores that sell Krylon. This is a gloss. This is a matte. Some of the people making the cosmic cloud platters prefer the matte black. You can also, for a different effect, you can use a dark blue. This particular can is a gloss, but any deep dark color will reflect the iridescence. And last, you probably want a can of clear lacquer or clear Krylon just as a final coating to protect the paint, and it gives it a little bit more luster. So these are some choices that you can make in creating a background for your iridescent paints, and obviously to add a little bit of shine if you want a glossy surface. So now what we're going to do is spend a little bit of time demonstrating how to mix your colors. One of the things that you need to do and need to recognize is that the paints are all virtually the same color when they come out of the bottles. So as you'll see, as I'm starting here, I have the iridescent green Let's put a dollop of green in there. Okay, now that's quite a bit, but if you look at it, you can see that, it's pretty clear. There's no particular color to it. Now I'm going to add about an equal amount of flow medium to the cup in order to make it liquid enough to spread easily on our platters. Now if you look at it and it still seems like it's pretty thick, it's best to add a little bit more flow medium, because you want this to be fairly liquid so that when you try to either pull the string through it or blow it with the airbrush or paint it, it will spread to a thin coating on the background. Now that's much better. It's pretty thin. I'd say it comes out starting like almost like a toothpaste. You want it to get to a consistency where it's almost like an ink. Very loose. So the next thing that you need to remember is always put your color and your cup together so that you don't forget what color you just mixed. Like I say, once it comes out and is mixed, it's hard to tell exactly what color it is. Okay, this is the violet. I'll add the flow medium to it. And again, we want to, get it in a pretty much like an ink, a pretty thin consistency, so that we can move it around on the surface of the wood. Now, one of the things that I would recommend is that if you're making a platter or a hollow form, before you spray your lacquer or matte paint on it, it's really a good idea to apply a sanding sealer to close up the wood a little bit, so that your background paint doesn't absorb into the wood and leave high spots, not high spots, but high brightness spots and dim spots where it's soaked in. That's almost the right consistency. We're going to add just a little bit, a couple of drops here. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we're going to go with the iridescent blue. Okay. And we'll add some flow medium. And we'll put a little bit more in. and it needs just a little bit more. Again, you're trying to get a pretty liquid consistency so that it'll spread easily and give you a good shine when it's spread. Okay, I think that's we'll use those three colors for the time being. What I'm going to do is I've got some little test boards here that I made just out of cardboard, just to show you, how the iridescence works. And I'm going to take a paintbrush and just swipe a little bit of this on here, just to give you an idea of what we can do with these paints. So this was the green. I hope you can see that. Now, as you can see, if you put it on thick and you let it dry like that, you have quite a bit of white area on it, and you might want that effect, but then again, you might not want that effect. So be cognizant of the fact that that'll happen if you put it on too thick. The same thing happens if you overlap the colors. Whoop. Our brush is getting a little bit full, so I might have to rinse it out and start over again. We certainly want it to be as vibrant as we can get it. Okay, good. All right, so we'll rinse that out. And now let's try a little bit of the violet. And as you can see, it looks white, just like the green did, but after you start to spread it out and thin down the paint on the background, it starts to reflect as whatever color that the paint pigment indicates. You have to be kind of careful not to get too much in there. Thin it out a little bit. Now I'm just doing this with a paintbrush for demonstration, but obviously if you want to do it with a paintbrush, you can. You can put any pattern you like, on your piece of work. And let's put a little dab of it down here somewhere. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, now let's try a little bit of the blue. Okay, so we'll rinse out a little bit. Okay, so here's some of the blue. And as you can see, you can create any kind of a pattern you like by working the colors together. What I was talking about earlier is that if you overlap it, it tends to leave a white pattern in the reflection. I think if you let one color dry sufficiently, you won't get that problem, but you have to be aware of things happening like that. So there's an example of using a brush to create your cosmic platter. That's a way of doing it. Another way that we mentioned is that you could use a sponge brush or something of the sort to create a pattern on the platter. I'm just going to take a little bit of this. I'm going to put some of the paint on this plate. Just a little dab, don't need a lot. Okay. And let's see here, where is I got a little one here. Okay. All right, so let's dab it in here a little bit and get some paint on it. I'm not going to do a lot here, just enough to show you how it can work. You just tap it and let me get this camera around a little bit. Tap it around, create your spots. Okay. And we'll grab a little bit of the violet. As you can see, as I use the sponge more and more, the paint comes off and is more precise than when you first start, because there's so much paint on it that it leaves the white showing there. So you can come back and kind of mop it up. And there's another idea. Thought I had one that was a little bit different size, but that's all right. What we can do is maybe use a straight sponge and put some rays out like this. You know, your imagination is key here. You can just kind of do anything you want. Almost looks like a turkey or something with its tail feathers up. So that's another idea of using the sponge brushes as a way to create your patterns on your platter or your vase or whatever. So what I've done here is I've gone ahead and taped down a piece of sample here, and what we'll do is we'll grab a piece of string here. That's just a piece of yarn, and we'll go ahead and put it in the cup. This happens to be the green cup. We'll get it covered up with paint. Just make sure we got enough paint on it to do the job. Now, you know, when you're doing your own project, you know, you can always make more as you go, or you can make a lot when you start, just to make sure you have enough. Okay, so we're going to take the end. We can find it. There we go. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to lay it out in something of a pattern. And we'll tap it down a little bit to make sure that it's adhering to the surface. Okay, and so we'll slowly start to pull it. And as you can see, it's created something of a flower. Now, the reason that I've taped this down is you have to realize that it will pull with the string. And if you have something of a problem down at the bottom, as long as it's wet, you can always wipe it off. The thing about wood is that it'll wipe off, but some of the iridescent pigment will get down in the grain, and you know, it won't be perfectly black unless you paint over it to hide that particular thing. But that's the way you do a string pull. So that's another example of how you can do designs on your platter. So now we're going to do a cosmic platter. What you see here is a piece of wood that I've already flattened out to make the platter. I'm doing this similar to the way Stuart Farini did it in a demonstration we watched last year. In any case, it's sanded to 220, and I put a coat of sanding sealer on it, and off camera I'm going to go ahead and spray this black so that we'll have a black background over the surface when I get ready to put the Jo Sonja Iridescent Paints on it. So we'll be right back, and in the meantime we're going to go ahead and mix up some of the paints that we're going to use for this. Okay, so while we were off camera for a bit, I sprayed the platter, dressed it up a little bit, and now we're going to create a cosmic cloud platter. What I have here is a cheap Harbor Freight airbrush. You can pick these up at any of the Harbor Freight stores. They come with the bottle down at the bottom, as opposed to the other types of airbrushes that have it on top. I also have a Grex airbrush, and you can see that the cup is on top of that. We'll use both of these just to show you how they work. With an airbrush, your trigger is here. To create a flow of air, you push down and then you pull back to introduce paint. But today all we're going to be doing is just pressing down to blow air out of the nozzle. All right, so let's get started. I've mixed up the 6 different colors of paints, the iridescent paints. I think what we'll do is start with a little bit of green, and all we need to do is just put some spots around here and there. Add a little bit more. And we'll take a little bit of air and we'll blow it around a little bit. And create a little cloud like, or a flower petal, however you like to look at it. Okay, and we'll put a few more drops on. And if you notice, I use the black glossy lacquer, and of course I applied a sanding sealer before I sprayed it on. It's always a good idea to do that because it helps to provide an even coat, and the paint doesn't soak into the wood so much. I'm using about 20 psi on the airbrush. I got a little bit on the inside of my ring there. And we'll take care of that in a second here. And it's good to spread it out as much as you can. Where did I put my paper towels? Okay, all right. Okay, so that looks better. All right, so now let's take a little bit of the iridescent blue, and we'll put a little bit of blue here and there. Now all this paint has been thinned down with flow medium. Like I said, you can use the Jo Sonja flow medium, or you can use any of the flow mediums from Golden or several other manufacturers. I also have some airbrush medium from Golden, and it does a really good job. Try to keep the paint from overlapping, because if it overlaps too much, it creates sort of a white area. You might not want that. And we're getting sort of a flower petal effect here. I can control how hard the air is blowing. I can also do it by changing the distance from the platter. The farther away I get, the less air touches the paint. The closer I get, the more air pressure is applied to it. So I can change how it moves. Just by controlling what I'm doing. So that's the Harbor Freight version of the airbrush. We'll do a little bit of the violet. And let's put that in here. Put some right there. Some right there. Let's put a little bit right here. Okay. I think this is actually the blue. Looks like I got my cups mixed up there. That's why it's important to try to keep your tubes or your bottles near your paint, so you know which one you're dealing with, because you don't know until you put it down which it is. Okay. All right, so I'm going to switch over from the Harbor Freight airbrush to the Grex airbrush. And I think at this point we'll go ahead and put some red down. And as you can see, it doesn't take a lot of paint to create these little cloud-like formations. Okay. And whoa, got a little bit too close. Got a little bit of splatter, but that's all right. We'll recover. Okay. Now what we can do is put a little bit of the gold color on. Let's put a little bit over here. Okay. All right, so and as you can see, I'm working fairly delicately. And there we yeah. Get a little bit of paper towel and just wet it a little bit. We can clean up that splatter. There we go, good. All right. And we got just a little bit in the groove there. All right, let's try a little bit of the turquoise. Doesn't take much. Okay. And Get just a little bit more in there. Okay, let's see what we got here. Let's put a little bit more gold in here. And maybe a little speck of gold in here. Okay. And let's see here. Let's put a little bit of violet, and now let's go with some red. And let's see here. And I like a little bit of blue right here, and a little bit of blue right in here. As you can see, you can work in fairly small places. And let's see, let's do a little turquoise. No, I think, yeah, a little turquoise might be good. Right there. All right, a little bit there, a little bit right in here. Okay. And let's see here. Let's go with a little bit more violet right in here. And a little bit right in there. Okay. So, and we need a little bit more in there. Okay. Okay, so I'm thinking we're getting close. So that is how we put together a cosmic cloud platter. You can play with it a lot more. You can make the clouds bigger. You can make smaller dots. You can use some of the other techniques that I showed. Obviously, it's a lot of playing. You just have to, put together an idea and carry it through. So that's the demonstration for this evening. I hope you enjoyed watching me make the Cosmic Cloud Platter. I will have a handout for Jo with a list of materials and some of the YouTube videos that I watched to help me understand what was required. After this platter dries, I will likely take a clear lacquer and put several coats over it to give it some shine, and obviously I'll go ahead and turn out the bowl portion of it. So after the video ends, I will be glad to answer any questions. Thank you very much.